Namo Buddhaya. Now, as much as I'd like to avoid this, I've been asked a number of times about posture. Now, the Buddha, of course, said that meditation can be in all four postures: sitting, standing, walking, and lying down. We don't so much recommend lying down unless you're unwell, because there is the tendency to fall asleep. So, we will look at the sitting posture. And I'm asked, is it essential to sit in the lotus position, half lotus, full lotus? Specifically, I have been asked in order to attain to the jhanas. Not at all. In fact, whatever position you're standing in, if you can arrive at the first level of samadhi, it means your concentration, your samadhi is developed sufficiently to make whatever posture you're sitting in quite irrelevant. But even to arrive at the first level of samadhi, which is quite some way from the first jhana, please refer to the previous videos on this subject, you do need to have an appropriate posture. There is no lounging around and there's no leaning. This isn't a practice of making the body comfortable. Albeit is also the middle path. It isn't a practice of making the body uncomfortable, but positioning yourself in such a way that you don't have to move for the duration of the meditation. So let's look at the sitting posture. So one, formally, and this is what you need to strive towards, and it takes a little practice, which I will give you some guidance on. So initially, formally, one would, if I do this sideways, you might be able to see, you can just sit on your knees, and then I'll turn around a little so you can see. One then would excuse me, cross your feet like so. Then you can, with your feet crossed like that, you can just sit quite easily without your feet ever pointing forward. Because if you're in the temple, this would be towards the monastics, the Sangha, or the Buddha, Rupa. And it's considered in all, I think, temples that is an appropriate gesture, inappropriate gesture. So, at the moment, I'm sitting in what is called the Burmese position, presumably because this is the way they like to sit in Myanmar, as it is now called. That is with this right calf, shin, and calf, bottom of your leg, in front of my left bottom of my leg. This knee, your knees are touching the ground. And your buttocks, your bottom, is evenly seated on the ground. I'm on a solid, flat, concrete floor, no cushions. Eventually, that makes this sitting position more comfortable. As soon as you put a cushion beneath you, a mat even, it disrupts this perfectly designed way to sit, and all sorts of problems arise of pins and needles, numbness. Like this, there are no pressure points. Nothing anywhere is being constricted in your blood flow. When you first try this, your knees will be like this. Okay? And there's a tendency to sit in the school cross-legged position, which I can't do because of the nature of how I'm dressed without being indecent. So this is not the way. That involves this shin being over the left shin, or vice versa. The shins should not cross. This is a pinch point, a numbness point, a pins and needles point. Not to be done. These legs are quite separate. My left heel is tucked right into what you would call your groin. Okay? Or, yes, that's, I think, the correct term. And my right heel is just resting gently against my left shin. But at first, your knees will be like this. With time, they will slowly drop, even just gravity. You don't have to push them, you don't have to force them, and please do not do that, because you will cause yourself cartilage damage. With time, they will just naturally drop to the floor. Then if you wish to go into the half lotus position, it's quite simple. This left foot goes on your, right foot goes on your left thigh. And then this heel also tucks into above your groin, but close into your body, the lower part of your torso. Now your knees have to touch the floor in this position. So until your knees in the Burmese position are comfortably resting on the floor, do not attempt this position. It will strain your knees, damage your knees, and it could be irreparable. Any of these positions, I am not a yoga teacher, I am not a physiotherapist, I am not a doctor. I am only showing you how I sit, and please take professional advice with all of this if you're finding any form of discomfort, and do not damage yourself. So this is the half lotus position sitting. Then one can take it one stage further, and how do I do this? With this left foot goes on your right thigh, and your right foot there goes on your left thigh. Thus. Now this is very comfortable. It doesn't look it because my feet are up here. The sole's flat up, facing up, yes. But it's so sturdy. Look, you can move all around like this. You cannot fall over. Like we had a toy in the olden days called the Weeble Wobbles. I am a Weeble Wobble and I don't fall down. This is the way it is, balanced. Now with all three of these positions, I was checking, I just said 3, you must have a straight spine, distributing the heaviest part of your body, which is your head, the weight, directly down to your coccyx, the lowest part of your spine, into the floor, through the cushion of your bottom, your buttocks. Your knees are the stabilizers on the tripod. So you have 3 points touching the ground, your bottom and your 2 knees, with the heaviest point of your weight directly, heaviest part of your body directly, its weight directed through your spine straight down to the floor, creating no strains. If you're leaning left, right, forward, backwards, chin like this, falling asleep, you're straining muscles. It may seem comfortable at first, but inevitably within a few minutes, even seconds, you will have to adjust that position. The minute you move, you are restarting your meditation. So, straight spine. And to ensure this, ears in line with shoulders, shoulders in line with hips. Straight down. You have a straight back. Your lower back, lumbar region, may be arched slightly inwards, pushing your belly out. This is fine. If you have a big belly, it doesn't matter. If you have a small belly, it doesn't matter. Let it be pushed out. No one's watching. Relax. It feels a little bit forced at first, but you'll feel very quickly energy, not mystical energy, real energy, pushing up your spine, giving you some extra vitality and awakeness. This is the full lotus position. Back to the half lotus position, the Burmese position. And this is where you should all start. And I repeat, your knees may be up here first of all, as your pelvis has to stretch a little, slowly drop down to the floor. When they're at the floor, then you can slowly attempt to put this foot on here. And then maybe only for a few seconds. Do not try these exercises during your meditation time. This is a separate exercise. When you are very comfortable or proficient in one posture, use that as your posture for meditation. Don't use your meditation time to practice these postures. And I'm going to repeat again, I am not a yoga teacher. I've learnt these just by copying monks sitting in front of me in Thai forest temples, being forced to sit on the floor myself, a concrete floor like this, most uncomfortable, and I will tell you it was torturous. I'd never, apart from as a child, I'd never sat on the floor before the age of about 40, and I then had to do a lot of I was fortunate I didn't damage myself, put it that way. But it was only sheer determination and effort that I was able to eventually sit like this for any length of time. But you're not given much choice in that environment, and I was in that environment, so I just went with the flow, and I was fortunate. But you have time, so be very kind to yourself, kind to your body and your mind. Your meditation is separate from this. And this is really the question I'm trying to answer, because people are saying, do I need to sit like that to get to jhanas, to become enlightened? No, 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 no. Sitting, standing, walking, or lying down are the 4 postures. It doesn't matter how you're sitting. But if you're not sitting, and I will use the word properly, if you're not sitting properly, it will be more difficult, because this position has been adopted over thousands of years, even before the Buddha's time, many thousands before the Buddha's time. Ask any yoga teacher. This position has been adopted for meditation because it works. If it didn't, it wouldn't still be around. You wouldn't see all these lovely pictures. I'm going to refer to Instagram again, which I've never even seen, but I imagine it's about pretty pictures, and of meditators would be sitting like this or something of that nature. This is the posture that has worked for thousands of years, so try it for yourself. Now, I'm going to show you how to sit on a chair. Now, please don't think of me patronising. There is a method to this also. It's still considered the sitting position, but I do appreciate many people, if you've been sitting like I had been sitting all of my life in an office chair or a sofa at home comfortably, to sit on the floor was agony and difficult. And there was no way at first I was able to meditate, although the sheer pain and discomfort of it became my meditation object, and had to be, because it was so much more obvious than the breath. But it brought me into the present moment, and it led me to be able to focus my mind in this very precious here and now. I had no doubts about where I was or when it was, because it hurt. So there we are. Now, when one needs to get up, you can just return to this Burmese position, and in the case of us monastics, we have to ensure that nothing's tangled in terms of our robes, because we have many people. Often when we're sitting like this, we may have many people behind us or in front of us. So we're conscious that we must remain decent at all times, and our clothing is such that it can fall off here and fall off there. As you see, I'm only wearing, this is called an angsa. This is just what we wear at home. So you're joining me at home today in this comfort. This is what we would have when we're just having our nampana, our drink in the afternoon with the fellow monks. It's just to keep ourselves decent, but normally we would be wearing our outer robe, and we'd have our sangati, our outer robe, upper robe, and then our sangati, our outer robe will be over our shoulder. And we still have to get up, let's say, gracefully. So to do that, one would lift your knees a little bit like this. You've got your right foot on the ground and your left foot on the ground. And then just like a scissor action, you can just lift yourself like this very easily once you've adapted to that sitting posture. So now I'm going to have to go a little quiet, because I need to take this microphone off in order to get the chair. Now let's see if I can position the chair in such a way where you can see what I'm doing. So I borrowed this very not such good chair, but it's sufficient for what we're looking at. Maybe a little like this. You see, I have no filming crew. Sorry, but I hope it's getting the point across. Okay, so again, one sits. Notice I'm not leaning, not using hands. Now this is appreciably not everybody's capability, but this is just the practice of getting up and down. I always sit. Sorry, I hope you heard the last bit. So I try not to use hands getting up and down, leaning and pushing. Now, I appreciate this isn't everybody's capability at first, but eventually it is. As I say, I started this at the age of 40, and then ever since I have been sitting on the floor. admittedly. And when you sit on the floor, everything you ever have to do involves you getting up from the floor. If you sit in a chair or on a sofa, which is why we designed chairs or sofas, apparently Jesus invented the chair. That's another story for another day. He was a carpenter though by trade, but they always used to sit on the floor, and he thought, this is no good. I've made a table, how do we sit at the table? And he made the chair. That's a myth, I'm sure. Anyway, if you always sit on the floor, as you do when you live the life as a monk, because we don't have chairs, you are always, whatever you have to do, you need to get up when you're a lay person. If you need to get up to turn the television on or off, or put the kettle on or off, to go to the toilet, you're getting up from the floor, up. A much longer way to go than from a chair. So your legs become stronger and your knees and your joints become more supple. So it is a good practice in itself, physically. But this isn't the meditation practice, this is a side which will assist with your meditation practice. So again, it is not relevant to the speed in which you can attain to any of the stages of samadhi, jhanas or nibbana. When you sit in a chair, similarly as you sit on the floor, your back should be straight. You do not lean on these arms. Forget they're there. I prefer to have had a chair without arms. In fact, if I'm anywhere where chairs are required, I ask for a chair without arms, then I can sit in my lotus posture. In this chair, or on some buses and on aeroplanes, it's difficult for me to sit in my lotus posture. Although aeroplanes, I have perfected a method. As long as the person in the right-hand side, because I always sit in the same seat with the window there and here, the man, if he's too fat, I can't do that. But if he's normal size, I can get my knees in between, in full lotus, in between these arms. Just through the many flights I've had to take back and forth from Thailand and UK. So, we are sitting in the chair, and it should be, we should pay attention. I don't think you can see the top of me. Ears in line with shoulders, in line with hips again. Ears, shoulders, hips. One straight line, spine down. Heaviest part of your body, the weight distributed evenly down your spine in a straight line, straight down your spine, through your coccyx, into the seat. In this case, the seat being your buttocks, your bottom, sitting straight on the surface, the hard surface of the seat. Try not to have a cushioned seat. A hard plastic seat like this is ideal, like that. On the floor. Of course, if you need cushions, have cushions, but I'm only suggesting that ultimately it is more comfortable without cushions. More, initially not more comfortable, but you can last sitting for longer. The minute you start propping yourself up with all these weird and wonderful devices they produce, you're only creating a position that needs to be adjusted. If you want to sit for 3 hours, every time you adjust, you've got to start that 3 hours again. So sit in a position you can keep for 3 hours. I'm not suggesting everyone is going to have to meditate for 3 hours, but even 20 minutes. Every time you move, you're starting again. So, because you're of course coming back to the body and you're in the moment with mindfulness, but if you're trying to attain to samadhi, you need not to be moving. You need to be just sitting, doing nothing. So we sit, ears, shoulders, hips. This means your chin is usually slightly tucked in. Okay, I didn't say that when I was on the floor, but I think you'll find that happens naturally, as opposed to like this. Your hands, I didn't say about hands. Hands should be right hand on left hand. Thumbs not pushing, just gently touching. If your thumbs just gently touch like this, it means that your hands are in the right position. I'm not showing, I hope that's coming on the screen there. So right hand on left hand, thumbs just touching like that. Resting on your lap, whether you're on a chair or on the floor. If you're on a chair and it has arms, and that means your arms are resting on the arm rests, then don't sit like that. Let them come into your sides and hang. Your arms should be hanging from your shoulders naturally, and your hands, just the weight resting naturally in your lap. Sitting like this, erect, your thighs, upper parts of your legs are horizontal to your knees. From your knees down, there should be a right angle, exactly whatever a right angle is. 45 or 90 degrees, 90 degrees I think. Straight down, geometry is not my thing, straight down to the floor. Right angles, yes, a square, half a square. Straight down, so your heels are right below your knees. Heels below your knees, both sides. No crossing, no none of this, no other way, just like that. Your feet should be slightly apart. I should say about the width of 1 foot apart, the width of a fist apart, okay, which means also so are your knees. So from the front, your shins are straight down also, okay? All nice and straight. Your feet, you will feel the soles flat on the floor, and also your feet to your shins are at right angles, half a square also. Okay, everything's angular, square, but this is for, like an angle poised lamp has to have its angles correctly to balance. So do you. To distribute all of these different proportions of your body so that the gravity is your assistant rather than your enemy. Okay, and sitting like this with your hands, you can have your hands just resting on your knees like that, but I think it's better to have them joined. Not hard, just relaxed. This is how to sit when you're sitting in a chair. When it's time to get up, you must put your feet behind your knees, your toes behind your knees, and then you can get up nice and easily. So, I hope that helps answer your questions. These are postures to be practiced and attained to. I'll repeat, separately from your meditation practice, not during, and you will find that after not a long time of sitting on the floor, you will be able to sit for a little bit longer each time, and at some point be able to integrate the two, so that you start with your meditation in the Burmese position. If you stay in the Burmese position for the rest of your meditation career, let's say, that's fine. The half lotus, the full lotus are not necessary. You'll even see many Buddha Rupas, which are our example of way to sit, the Buddha statue, he is in the Burmese position, especially if it's a Burmese Buddha Rupa. So you'll also see many of him in full lotus, which is probably of the time then people would have been sitting like that for meditation. If I'm meditating for a long time, I sit in half lotus. If I'm meditating for a short time, so less than half an hour or 40 minutes, I would sit in full lotus. 40 minutes to an hour, I'd sit in full lotus. After a longer session than that, I might sit in half lotus. For no particular reason, other than I find if I'm in full lotus, then it's a less smooth exit towards the end, perhaps, let's say, because you have to slightly untangle yourself. So a full lotus also, when you're doing guided meditation and there are people around, you don't want to be tying yourself up in many knots with these robes. If you're in practical clothing, this is practical for being a monk, but if you're in sports clothing, then full lotus every time, because you can not have to worry about keeping yourself decent. So this is the way we practice and the way we sit. I wish you all the very best. Be very, very careful, very, very careful and kind to your bodies and your minds. Do not torture yourself. This is a path of pleasure, not pain. So, Namo Buddhaya.